Yeah. Yeah. So 101. 1 hour from now.
Good evening, everyone. On behalf of the Liberal Jewish Synagogue, I would like to extend to everyone who has joined us either on our YouTube channel or on Zoom a very warm welcome to our multi-faith Chanukah celebration. This event grew out of the smaller, intimate gatherings of members and staff of the synagogue for each night of Chanukah many years ago. Then, in 2011, the centenary year for the synagogue, and with the help of our interfaith advisor at the time, Steve Darby, we decided to open up one night of the Festival of Lights to everyone who might be able to join us in person for the lighting of the candles, for tea, for a tour of the synagogue, creating an environment where people of different faiths, nationalities, cultures, and heritage could come and encounter each other, build friendships and partnerships, a microcosm of the capital city from where I am speaking. Our multi-faith Chanukah celebration grew. It grew so much that each year, the special Chanukah food that we ordered, latkes and donuts, were eaten in a short space of time, which may sound as though there wasn't enough food, but there were so many people joining us, as there are this evening. Back in October of this year, I received an email from Sarah Reynolds, director of Salisbury World, a wonderful organization in London that supports and empowers refugee children and their families. She wrote how challenging the year has been for the families she supports, with poverty and mounting stress, and she ended her email with these words: "We will be sorry not to be able to come to the Chanukah service in December, but very much hope you are all keeping well." The autumn festivals were not long over, but within days we had hatched a plan. Of course, we could still celebrate the Festival of Light together, only in a different way, and I'm incredibly grateful to the synagogue for supporting this online celebration. Grateful to my colleagues, Rabbi Igor Zinkov, who is the mastermind behind the visuals you'll see this evening, and Steve Darby, who began this journey with us about 10 years ago at the LJS, who has worked in the interim on Interfaith Matters, his organization, and who agreed to come back to help us promote the diversity and inclusiveness that we want to celebrate tonight. We have some very special guests with us this evening, and I will be introducing them shortly. But before then, I want to give you a sense of who is with us this evening. More than 300 people have registered, and we are delighted that you have chosen to join us. Tonight, we welcome individuals from the Jewish, Christian, Muslim, Hindu, Sikh, Baha'i, Jain, and Zoroastrian faiths. Individuals are joining us from Poland, Switzerland, Ireland, Ghana, India, for whom it will be tomorrow when the event ends, the United States, and of course here in the UK. We are also joined by individuals from scores of different organizations, and I'm going to mention them as a way of celebrating our coming together from our diverse organizations and backgrounds. If I have left anyone out, it is an oversight and I apologize, but please introduce yourselves in the chat. A special welcome to the embassies of Israel, Austria, and Germany. Representatives from the Cabinet Office, Westminster, and Camden Councils, including Westminster's Faith Exchange and the Mayor, Her Majesty's Armed Forces, the World Union for Progressive Judaism, the Church of England, the Muslim Council of Britain, the Hindu Forum of Britain, the Catholic Bishops' Conference for England and Wales, City Sikhs, the Humanists UK, Srimad Rajchandra Mission, Dharampur UK, the Council of Christians and Jews, Pathways, including St John's Wood Church and the London Central Mosque, the Zoroastrian Trust Fund of Europe, the Institute of Ismaili Studies, Baps Sri Swaminarayan Mandir, often known as the Neasden Temple, Lichfield Cathedral, Liberal Judaism, the Islamic Foundation in Leicester, the Community Security Trust, and Security Advice for Everyone, the Tony Blair Institute for Global Change, Mitzvah Day, the Jewish Police Association, the Never Again Association of Poland, our neighbours, the England and Wales Cricket Board, the United Kingdom Parliament, the St John's Wood Society, the Office for Democratic Institutions and Human Rights, which is part of the Organisation for Security and Cooperation in Europe in Poland, the Marie Curie Hospice in Hampstead, Religions for Peace UK chapter, and Salisbury World Refugee Centre. To everyone who has joined us, whether you are representing organisations or here as individuals, a very warm welcome. I have not yet mentioned the reason we are here, Chanukah, the Festival of Lights or dedication, to give it its proper translation. Here is a little introduction with grateful thanks to LJS member Ariel Galimard and Rabbi Igor Zinkov for their special contributions.
The history of the festival of Chanukah stretches back over 2,000 years to a time of complex religious, political, and social circumstances, perhaps not unlike our own era, of those who want to build bridges of dialogue and those who want to maintain a more extreme or withdrawn position in society. It is a festival which is also infused with a powerful legend about light and a spiritual message that what is important is not might or power, but the light of God's presence among us. Chanukah may have very ancient associations linked with the winter solstice, but its history is related in the book of Maccabees, a book that didn't make it into the canon of the Bible. Alexander the Great had conquered the Near East, including the small province of Judea. After his death, Judea came under the rule of the Seleucid dynasty. By 167 BCE, Antiochus Epiphanes was king and wanted all the people under his rule to Hellenize. He issued laws and decrees against the Jews and their practices. You cannot worship in your temple. You cannot study or read from the Torah. You must break your dietary laws. And then he did something that hurt and offended the people deeply. He set up a statue of Jupiter inside the temple, and the people were heartbroken that their temple had been defiled in such a way. They fled to the mountains and lived in caves round about Jerusalem. At that time, there was an old priest called Mattathias who had 5 sons. So enraged was he by this state of affairs that he vowed to liberate Jerusalem and reclaim the temple from its defilement. When he died, his son Judah the Maccabee took over. It took many years before the small Jewish army defeated Antiochus's armies, recaptured the temple, and rededicated it with a festival that lasted 8 days. Many centuries later, the rabbis of the Talmud retold the story of Chanukah with a legend about a vial of oil, its seal unbroken, just enough for 1 day. But a miracle occurred, and the light burned for 8 days. Since that time, the Jewish people have celebrated 8 days and nights of Chanukah, the festival of dedication, recalling the dedication of the temple. This story is told from generation to generation each year at this season, as we light the candles on the Chanukiah and recall the miraculous survival of our people. But for all of us here, representing different faiths and cultures, different races and nationalities, its central theme of light in the midst of darkness is a universal theme. The light represents the light of creation, the light of the wintry sun we see first thing in the morning, warming the frost on the ground, or the light of a glorious sunset that concludes our day. It is the light of learning and illumination when we learn something new, the light of the warmth of friendship and companionship when we are lonely, and it is the overflowing light of hope in a future when all God's creatures will be blessed with greater love and understanding. As it is written in the prophet Zechariah, read at this season, "Not by might, not by power," says the prophet Zechariah, "but by my Spirit, says the Eternal One of hosts."
It is now a very great honor to introduce our guest speakers live with us on Zoom this evening. I am delighted to welcome the Most Reverend Justin Welby, Archbishop of Canterbury, to be joining us just 8 days before Christmas is a gesture of huge generosity, Archbishop, and we are so grateful to you for graciously agreeing to be with us. Archbishop Justin was ordained in 1992 after an 11-year career in the oil industry. I don't know whether that's relevant to the miracle of Chanukah, Archbishop. He spent his first 15 years serving in Coventry Diocese, often in places of significant deprivation. In 2002, he was made a canon of Coventry Cathedral, where he jointly led its international reconciliation work. During this time, he worked extensively in Africa and the Middle East. Archbishop Justin has a passion for reconciliation and peacemaking ever since. He was Dean of Liverpool from 2007 to 2011 and Bishop of Durham from 2011 to 2012, before being announced as the 105th Archbishop of Canterbury in late 2012. The Archbishop is spiritual leader of 85 million Anglicans worldwide. After the Archbishop's address, we will pause to listen to the traditional Chanukah song, Ma'oz Tzur, Rock of Ages, sung by Christina Burchell-Sampson. The Hebrew poem dates from the 13th century, and the tune may be a German folk tune, which was also set to a Lutheran hymn. This will be followed by words from my colleague, Rabbi Sybil Sheridan, who was one of the first women to be ordained as a rabbi in the UK and Europe. She has served both liberal and reform synagogues and is currently executive director of the Lions Learning Project. Rabbi Sheridan will be followed by Dr. Mohamed Keshavjee, an international cross-cultural specialist on mediation and a scholar of contemporary Islam. A barrister by profession, he has trained mediators in 25 countries of the world and was the 2016 recipient of the Gandhi King Aikida Peace Award for his work in peace and human rights education. It is my pleasure and honor now to invite Archbishop Justin Welby to address us.
Well, my greetings to you all. It is a huge privilege to speak to you, and I'm most grateful for the invitation. And what a year to speak. It is a year that our children and grandchildren will remember. They'll say to their irritated own children and grandchildren in half a century, oh yes, it's been quite a year, but not like 2020 was. It's been a year of being confined to homes, of economic uncertainty. It's been a year of inequality, where the deep fragilities of our society have had the paper stripped off from them so that we can see every crack and failing. This morning in our weekly meeting with our scientific advisors on COVID, we heard again the numbers as we do each week, but the added factor that more and more clearly it is seen that you're more likely to get COVID, more likely to be severely ill, more likely to die if you are in poor housing, areas of deprivation, overcrowding, and intergenerational homes. You're more likely if you're unemployed. You're more likely if you're in a low paid job. There is nothing equal about this virus. I've had the privilege of being asked to volunteer in St. Thomas's Hospital just round the corner. And to this day, I've seen really serious suffering. Last week, I went to the bedside of a 14-year-old boy who'd had COVID in October, and it had lurked in his body and attacked his heart. The day after, I sat with him in his delirium with his mother, in her distress. He was put on a ventilator, and by the goodness of God, a few days later recovered and is still in hospital, but sitting up and eating. You see endless examples of the deepest suffering. But it is also a place where amongst its darkness, small but brilliant lights shine brightly. The care of nurses, doctors, of cleaners and caterers. They are easily forgotten. One of my weekly visits, I went with the chaplain down into the basement where the cleaners and caterers are. There's something significant about basement there, and they, of course, go into intensive care and take the same risks as everyone else for the rather lower salaries. They work tirelessly because they recognize that the lives of others are sacred. It is light that we celebrate at this time of year. What an extraordinary celebration Chanukah is. It draws out the light of this dark time, literally dark, spiritually dark, materially dark, of anxiety. But light has such an impact. I have a very close friend and colleague here who worked in Sudan, South Sudan, for many years towards the end of the War of Independence, and very near the White Nile, flowing down Khartoum. The diocese of the Anglican Church for which he worked bought a boat so that they might travel up and down river to different communities. And he went on its first trip. He said that he knew there'd be trouble when he arrived because it was more of a canoe than a boat and there were more holes than wood. So rather nervously, he got into the boat and they set off down the Nile with the stream. And of course, the motor failed. The Nile in that area is heavily inhabited by hippopotamuses and crocodiles. And there he was with about 10 others in this tiny boat floating downstream as night fell and the rain came on. It was the rainy season. It rained harder and harder. They were nowhere near a town. The person behind him began to pray in preparation for what they all saw as their imminent death. And then as they floated, they saw a light. They managed to paddle to the edge of the river and found a place where they could get ashore without meeting hippopotamuses or crocodiles. And they walked across open country for a little way and they found an abandoned Italian mission hospital where some shepherds were staying with fire, food, and safety. It was a light of welcome and hope and rescue at the darkest moment of despair. In the far greater darkness, the infinite darkness, the unforgettable, indescribable darkness of the Second World War, Chief Rabbi Hertz and my predecessor, Archbishop William Temple, joined together to light a candle, start the Council for Christians and Jews. The candle represented hope and courage, the imagination to find light and discover friends. The light was a chance to find God anew. The darkness of fascism and hatred that scarred the mid-20th century was not rational. Darkness never is. The Hebrew in Genesis describes the dark earth as formless and void. Chaos is only put in order by the appearance of the God of light. There has always been hatred and cruelty towards those who are different. And in darkness, that hatred and cruelty grows deeper, more violent. But God lights a light if we let God do so. In God's ecology, the violence of anti-Semitism, of racism, misogyny, homophobia, hatred of one for another. In God's ecology, there is light that reveals the true shape of those blasphemies and drives out darkness. So we can stand, not with violence, but with hope against them. We cannot afford to rest on our laurels. We must continue to light that light. This year, in addition to COVID, we've had another darkness, and the light has shone on it thanks to the heroism of ordinary people like George Floyd, of those who stood up after his murder and began to sing songs like This Little Light of Mine. And at Chanukah, of course, Jews have the song, we come to drive away the darkness, in our hands is light and fire. Everyone is a small light, and all of us are a firm light. Those of us who seek to follow in God's ways, despite our differences, are called to march to a different tune, to dance to a different rhythm. We keep our light shining as testimony to our hope. We light light for each other. When one's light is threatened, we join together and hold up our light and say, find hope with us. There has been much of that in the last 15 months. At the heart of the Christian Advent and the Jewish Chanukah is the idea that just at the darkest hour, light arrives, the darkest hour before the dawn. And at the heart of both these traditions is surprise. It is the victory of the outsider, those on the edge, the vulnerable baby king over the powers of empire. Victory didn't look much like victory. For us, a tiny baby in the wrong place, a crucified carpenter. Our celebrations of festivals are when we reorient these and other stories. It is these stories that cause me to want to stand with the Muslim girl who I met after the Christchurch massacre, Christchurch, New Zealand, who's told my wife and myself that every day she started with nervousness when she put on the hijab, and who after the commemoration at the Regent's Park Mosque, on her way home was spat at on the bus. Such darkness. It causes me to want to stand with Jewish people when I hear anti-Semitism. In Chanukah, we remember that even small acts done in faith, the lighting of one candle, are joined together by others, whether Jews, Christians, Muslims, Sikhs, Hindus, other faiths, Jains, no faith, Buddhists, Baha'i. The paradox of the light of God's goodness is we testify in our specific Christians and festivals that we are not possessors of God's light. We are its recipients. We will find each other beyond ourselves as we seek to serve each other and bless each other and our society. Chanukah Sameach. Happy Chanukah. Thank you.
Spit gloriously assailed us, but your arm veiled us, and your word broke their sword when our own strength failed us. Children of the Maccabees, whether free or fettered, wake the echoes of the songs where you may be scattered. Yours the message cheering, but the time is nearing, which will see all go free, tyrants disappearing.
Thank you, Archbishop. I would like to invite Rabbi Sybil Sheridan next to speak.
Thank you. When God created Adam and Eve on the sixth day, they saw the sun rise for the first time, and they celebrated and enjoyed all the goodness of the Garden of Eden. But then the evening came and the sun set, and darkness covered the world, and they were filled with a great fear. Then it was that God took two stones named Darkness and the Shadow of Death, and rubbed them together, created a spark, and made a fire. Adam and Eve rejoiced at the light of the fire. They saw how the light conquered the darkness around them, and joy conquered their fear. They saw that God had not abandoned them, and that they could live through the darkness until light once more dawned. The lights of the candles that we light at this time represent our past times, when Jewish people suffered at the hands of others, but they survived. And as with Adam and Eve, God did not abandon them, and they too knew they could live through the darkness till light once more dawned. And the candles represent our own experience. The last year has indeed been a dark one, as the Archbishop has referred to already. The virus has affected all our lives, and many of our loved ones have been lost because of it. Yet there have been so many instances where the light outshone the darkness. The untiring work of our doctors and nurses, care workers, cleaners and caterers, all those who gave their all through the pandemic. And the many individuals, the volunteers who have called people and shopped and encouraged all those who are living alone. The clapping of the NHS through the summer brought so many neighbours together who had barely spoken before, brought streets together, boosting the morale of all who attended. The darkness that COVID brought has brought out also the innate goodness found in all humanity. That is the true light in the darkness. Chanukah Sameach, a happy Chanukah.
Thank you, Rabbi Sybil. And Dr. Keshavjee, let me invite you to unmute.
Thank you, Rabbi. Your Grace, respected rabbis, ladies and gentlemen, the metaphor of light exists in all religious traditions. In my own denomination of Islam, formerly known as the Shia Imami Ismaili Tariqah of Islam, light symbolizes a number of principles: knowledge over ignorance, hope over despair, and social justice over self-centeredness. Above all, light symbolizes a search for the inner journey, which is so critical if we want to understand what life is all about and our place in the cosmic drama as we navigate through the vicissitudes of our worldly existence. Keeping the light alive is a conscious act of faith, a conscious endeavor to try and understand the mysteries of the universe to which we are not privy, but which is something we need to search for. Our theme tonight focuses on letting the light shine through love and tears. And there could be no more apposite time than now for us to reflect on how to let that light shine. As we look through the worst pandemic in a century, which has claimed the lives of over 1 million people, we see more clearly the glaring inequities under which we have all been living so long, and which His Grace the Archbishop of Canterbury outlined a few moments ago. We see the scourge of egregious racism, the plight of the poor, the wretched, and the indigent, the need for greater gender justice, the quest for a moral economy, and above all, the need to care for the environment, which is not there for us to plunder, but which we must protect and nourish for future generations. Here, the notion of light calls for us to look deep into the recesses of our souls and to ask ourselves, to what extent are we complicit in the misery of our fellow sentient beings? And are we prepared to take positive action to ensure greater social justice? Like the texts of the other Abrahamic faiths, the Holy Quran speaks of light when it says in Surah 24, verse 35, Allah is the light of the heavens and the earth. The example of His light is like a niche in which is a lamp. The lamp is in a glass. The glass is, as it were, a pearly white star, lit from the oil of a blessed olive tree, neither of the east nor of the west, whose oil would almost glow even if untouched by fire. Light upon light, Allah guides to His light whom He pleases, and Allah is all-knowing. This verse from the Quran has great significance for all Muslims from across the interpretive spectrum. One of the many interpretations says that the niche is the heart of the believer, and the light therein is our God-given conscience that guides us in our everyday lives. The lighting of the candles during Hanukkah, the Festival of Lights, is a direct reminder of God's miraculous concern for the world. And as we look into the candlelight, we are also reminded to seek God's grace so that we may recognize the divine light which is in all of us, regardless of class, color, race, gender, or creed. It is for us, therefore, as children of Adam, and in keeping with the Quranic notion that we are all created from a single soul, to keep this flame alight for all of humanity. Finally, I should like to wish all of you a very happy Hanukkah. May God Almighty bless us all. Thank you.
Thank you so much to Archbishop Justin, Rabbi Sybil Sheridan, and Dr. Mohamed Keshavjee for your uplifting and enlightening addresses to us this evening, and for being with us on this very special occasion. May the clarity of your messages transcend all other voices in our world at the moment, so that we hear your message loud and clear. You represent the three Abrahamic faiths, but as you heard at the very beginning, we have with us this evening representatives and individuals from multiple faiths and organizations. And it is now my great pleasure to introduce short greetings from Her Excellency Tzipi Hotovely, the Israeli ambassador, from His Excellency Dr. Michael Zimmerman, the Austrian ambassador, from Rabbi Sergio Bergman, the president of the World Union for Progressive Judaism, from Jasveer Singh, OBE, chair of City Sikhs, from Ervad Yazad Gadha, resident priest at the Zoroastrian Center in Harrow, from Trupti Patel, president of the Hindu Forum of Britain, and Ashwin Mehta, trustee of Srimad Rajchandra Mission, Dharampur, UK, the Jain community.
It is a real pleasure to join you all, and it is an honor to be speaking alongside the Archbishop. I'm grateful for your invitation. Chanukah is a family holiday. This year, thanks to technology, we can celebrate it together as one big Jewish family. Just as Chanukah is the festival of freedom, we can also celebrate the values of freedom and democracy the State of Israel champions today. Just as we are celebrating the light of Chanukah, we can also celebrate the light of our peace with the UAE, Bahrain, and Sudan. And I hope more to come. I hope it will be possible to meet you all soon in person. And until then, I wish you all Chanukah Sameach.
Dear Jewish friends and compatriots here in Britain, it's a great honor for me to join today's multi-faith Hanukkah celebration at the Liberal Jewish Synagogue, and I'm happy to join you here via this video link. 2020 has been a difficult year, and I asked myself, is there a positive message that I can bring you today? And the answer is yes. Austria has a new Citizenship Act, which makes it much easier for descendants of Austrian Nazi victims to gain Austrian citizenship. And I'm happy that so many people here in the UK have already taken up this offer, and we could welcome already a number of new Austrian citizens. This somehow gives expression to this year's Hanukkah celebration theme. Don't let the light go out, let it shine through our love and tears. I wish you all Hanukkah Sameach.
The Jewish tradition consecrates the light in the re-inauguration of our sacred temple in Jerusalem. But we know every religion, every culture around the world, for a very long time, we celebrate the light. Because light is not only a physical revelation, it's the only way that we have to go away from the darkness. But for spirituality, light is God's presence. It's written, Ner Adonai Nishmat Adam. The light of God is the soul of the human beings. Here we are together, different faiths, different traditions, celebrating the joy of the light that make us only one extended family, that we share the common house, our beautiful world. In this difficult time of COVID, all the humankind, like brothers and sisters, we celebrate the light and we bring hope and redemption in the near future. Chag Sameach, have the joy of the spiritual light of humankind.
Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. It gives me great pleasure to be joining you today in the Liberal Jewish Synagogue's Festival of Lights and Hanukkah celebrations. I just want to share a prayer for the Sikh tradition with yourselves. Upon that cosmic plate of the sky, the sun and the moon are the lamps. The stars on their orbs are the studded pearls. The fragrance of sandalwood is in the air, in the temple incense, and the wind is a fan. All the plants of the world are the altar flowers in offering to you, O luminous Lord. What a beautiful lamplit worship service this is. O destroyer of fear, this is your ceremony of light, the unstruck sound current of the Shabbat. The word is the vibration of the temple drums.
Shalom. On behalf of the Zoroastrian Trust Funds of Europe and the Zoroastrian community in the UK, I, in my capacity as the resident priest of Zoroastrian Center, wish all my Jewish friends a very happy Hanukkah. We Zoroastrians have a long interfaith tradition of celebrating festivals of our neighbors and colleagues who practice a different religion from our own. It is auspicious to invite and be invited to celebrate the multitude of interfaith festivals. We, in the Zoroastrian Trust Funds of Europe and the Zoroastrian community, are glad that we continue to do the same in the UK. May this 8 days festival spread the light of dedication and shine brightly in all the regions of the world, so good can overcome evil, more so during this year when we have been affected by the dreaded COVID-19. May this festival of light bring prosperity to our fellow Jewish friends during the coming year. From the Zoroastrian Center in Harrow, on the auspicious occasion of Hanukkah, I am pleased to convey the best wishes of the Zoroastrian community to the Jewish community in the UK and around the world. I pray to the Creator Aura Mazda to keep you all safe, bring happiness into your lives, and light your paths for good health, prosperity, and peace. Hanukkah Sameach.
Namaste, all my brothers and sisters. For the Festival of Light, we have just completed the Diwali and now we are going to have Hanukkah. And all my Jewish brothers and sisters, I wish you lots and lots and lots of happiness and the light. Today I will read invocation, a prayer, Om Asato Ma Sadagamaya, Tamso Ma Jyotir Gamaya, Mrutyo Ma Amrutam Gamaya, Om Shanti, Shanti, Shantihi. O Supreme Lord, lead me from untruth to truth. Lead me from darkness to light. Lead me from death to immortality. Let there be peace, peace, and peace. Om Shanti and Namaste. I am Mrs. Tripti Patel, President of the Hindu Forum of Britain. Thank you very much.
Jai Janendra. In the Jewish tradition, the Festival of Lights is a special time to be celebrated. Similarly, the Jain faith celebrates its Festival of Lights called Diwali. For us, this marks the auspicious day when Lord Mahavir, the most recent of the great Jain enlightened spiritual masters called Tirthankaras, attained liberation from the cycle of birth and death over 2,500 years ago. The great Jain saint Srimad Rajchandraji, who expounded the teachings of Lord Mahavir, has written in verse 98 of Sri Atmasiddhi Shastra, the state of doership is ignorance, while abiding in the self is liberation. Ignorance is like darkness, cleared only by the light of wisdom. We join you in celebrating the triumph of the light of knowledge over the darkness of ignorance, the eternity of the soul over the mortality of the body, and the establishment of love over conflict. On behalf of Srimad Rajchandra Mission Dharampur UK and the Jain community, we wish all our Jewish brothers and sisters a very happy and healthy Chanukah.
Well, if our speakers are with us this evening, thank you so much for offering us your prayers and your thoughts and your messages and greetings to us. Now, a significant feature of our Chanukkah Multi-faith Celebration each year is a tour of our synagogue, the Liberal Jewish Synagogue in St. John's Wood in London. With great pleasure and thanks, I would like to introduce to you two very dear members of the synagogue, Anne and Bob Kirk, whose long association with the synagogue makes them the perfect hosts to draw you into the sanctuary and show you some of the things of which we are so proud.
Welcome to the LJS, the oldest and, so far, the largest community in the liberal movement, with about 2,000 members. This is the congregation's third home. The first, originally a chapel, was acquired at our foundation in 1910. It has long since disappeared under a block of flats near the Baker Street end of Park Road. The second, purpose-built on this site and opened in 1925, was badly damaged in an air raid in November 1940. It was repaired after the war, but the unseen effects of the bombing eventually led us to demolish and rebuild. So this building is the result. It was dedicated in 1991. The portico is the only feature left from the previous building. Now, here in the foyer between the great entrance doors, the focus is on our Shoah Holocaust Memorial, a block of Kilkenny limestone fashioned by the renowned sculptor Inez Kapoor. It commemorates the 6 million Jewish people, men, women, and children, murdered by the German Nazi regime 1933 to 1945. The inscription we have vowed to remember is adapted from a poem, The Oath, by Abram Shalomsky. From the memorial, you could see through the slot directly to the ark containing the scrolls and the Ner Tamid, the eternal light. The juxtaposition is deliberate. When we rebuilt, we knew we would have a Shoah memorial in this location, even though it took us 6 years to find the right artist.
Now we move into the sanctuary. Above the doors from the foyer, there's an inscription, Baruch atah b'voecha, u'baruch atah b'tzetecha. Blessed shall you be as you enter, and blessed shall you be as you go out. Comes from Deuteronomy 28:6. The sanctuary was designed by the Israeli architects Cantor Schwartz. It features Jerusalem stone quarried on the hill in the hills between Jerusalem and Hebron. We brought over a team of Palestinian stonemasons to cut and grade the stones. The stone comes in various shades, and the congregation had an opportunity to select the one to be used. The ark doors and Ner Tamid were designed by another Israeli, Amit Shua. We can seat about 930 people, including about 500 in the gallery. Men and women sit together. There is no separation. The lower bima can be retracted to accommodate more seating or to make space for special events like dancing on Simchat Torah. The Bima chairs were designed by our member, Jane Feinstein. The tapestry seating was made by about 100 of our members, a great project. The vignettes represent the cycle of the year from Yom Kippur to Rosh Hashanah. The design is echoed in the congregational seating. The inscription over the ark is Ivdu et Adonai b'simcha, serve the Eternal One with joy, from Psalm 100. You will note that there are no images. Our worship focuses on prayer, supported by beautiful music by our professional singers, as well as a members' choir. And each week we read a portion from the Torah, the 5 books of Moses, the founding text of Judaism, in an annual cycle, beginning with Genesis, in the beginning God created, and ending with the death of Moses in Deuteronomy. The cycle is perpetual. On the day we say farewell to Moses, we start again with creation. There are 5 scrolls in the ark. The number is coincidental. Each contains all 5 books, and the text is identical. All the scrolls have history. Unfortunately, we don't know as much about them as we would like. This is the youngest of our scrolls, written in Israel just about 100 years ago, and presented to us by a congregant at our 75th anniversary in 1986. It's written on parchment, like almost all scrolls, although the large Sephardi one on the right of the ark is written on leather. The process is painstaking and slow. Writing a scroll can take 18 months. No fountain pen or biro, so the scribe will use a quill or a reed and specially prepared ink. The ink used can be based on iron sulfate or copper sulfate. You can tell which has been used because iron remains black, while copper over time will turn brown, like this little scroll. This is one of 1,564 scrolls brought to this country in 1964 from what was then Czechoslovakia. The Jewish congregations had been closed down under Nazi German rule, and the majority of their members sent to concentration camps. This scroll comes from a small town in Moravia, Moravska Budějovice. It's more than 200 years old and is looked after by our school. It was badly water damaged during 20 years of neglect and storage. Its size suggests it may have been used by a rabbi or teacher visiting small scattered communities without a rabbi. If you'd like to know more about the Czech scrolls, go to the Memorial Scrolls Trust at Westminster Synagogue in Knightsbridge. Reading from a scroll isn't just a matter of opening up and reading. You really have to know your text. All the letters you've been looking at are consonants. Vowels in Hebrew are represented by symbols mostly below the consonants, and a change in vowel can give a word an entirely different meaning. So in order to prepare, most people will use a textbook showing the passage both unpointed, as in the scroll, and pointed. Here is the everyday hub of the building. To the right, the Israel Abraham's Library. It's a reference and members' lending library containing about 6,000 books on a wide variety of subjects. To the left, the foyer is dominated by the Harvest Festival's mural, painted by William Utermohlen, commissioned and presented by a member in 1981. It represents the 3 pilgrim festivals, Pesach, Passover, Shavuot, Pentecost, and Sukkot, Tabernacles. It's interesting to note that, created 40 years ago, it depicts a mixed society. Opposite, there's the Montefiore Hall, used for social events, lectures, additional services, and kiddush. To the right, the nursery, used mainly by excellent nursery and preschool, and essential for any Jewish communal institution, the kitchen. A short corridor takes us from the foyer, past the stairs to the upper floor, to the John Rayner room, a purpose-built addition dedicated to the memory of our late senior rabbi. It's used for study sessions, committee meetings, and with its own ark, small services. In February 2019, a stained glass memorial window created by Ruth Kersley was dedicated. Thank you for joining us for this brief tour.
It is the time now to light our Chanukah candles. A medieval Israeli rabbi, Isaac Luria, developed a concept, Shvirat HaKelim, the breaking of the vessels. According to this poetic metaphor, in the beginning of the creation of the world, the divine light was contained in special vessels. Unable to contain the powerful current of light, they shattered, and the light was scattered all over the world in the form of countless divine sparks. These sparks are still around us and sometimes can be found in the most unexpected places. Later, this concept was developed further, saying that all people have the ability to find and contain the sparks. The task of each individual, therefore, is to collect and contain as much light as possible. But once your own vessel is full of light, you should not stop there, but continue to collect the light so that it overflows and gives light to other people. I think that we can see this metaphor in the Chanukah candles. The candle which we light first is different from others. Usually it is positioned higher than other candles. It is not called a leader candle or the best candle or the first candle. In Hebrew, we call it a shamash, a servant candle, the one that helps others, the one that shares its light with other candles. And we are going to light Chanukiah or Chanukah candles now. Each day we add one more candle to our Chanukiah, a Chanukah candle lamp. Today is the 8th day, the last day of Chanukah, with the full set of candles. If you would like to join us, please prepare your Chanukiah and let us light it together. If you don't have a Chanukah lamp, but still would like to join us, you can light any candles you have at home. May these Chanukah candles be a reminder and a sign of gratitude to everyday miracles, people who serve others and share their light, kindness, and hope with others. And as we light the servant candle, and before we light other candles, we say 2 blessings. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Chanukah. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, שעשה ניסים לאבותינו בימים ההם בזמן הזה. We put candles on the Chanukiah from right to left, but write them from left to right. הנרות הללו אנחנו מדליקים על הניסים ועל התשועות ועל הנפלאות. We kindle these lights in remembrance of the wonderful deliverance you performed for our ancestors. During all the 8 days of Chanukah, these lights are sacred. We are enjoined not to use them, but only to gaze upon them, so that their glow may move us to give thanks for your wonderful acts of deliverance. And I'm going to stop sharing the screen now, so that we all would see each other's Chanukiot and each other's candles.
This is such a beautiful scene. Thank you so much, Rabbi Igor. And really, this would be the moment that we make our way into our Montefiore Hall for tea, latkes, potato pancakes, and donuts, sufganiot. I'm afraid you'll have to wait until next year to really get a taste of Chanukah. But I cannot end this event without thanking all those who have contributed to the heartwarming atmosphere this evening. I want to thank our outstanding speakers, the Most Reverend Justin Welby, Archbishop of Canterbury, Rabbi Sybil Sheridan, and Dr. Mohamed Keshavjee for being with us this evening. Your presence and your addresses are testimony to the words of the song that give this evening its theme. Don't let the light go out, let it shine through our love and our tears. Thank you to the individuals who took the time to record greetings and blessings. Her Excellency Tzipi Hotoveli, the Israeli ambassador, Dr. Michael Zimmerman, the Austrian ambassador, Rabbi Sergio Bergman, President of the World Union for Progressive Judaism, Jasvir Singh, Ervad Yazad Gadha, Trupti Patel, and Ashwin Mehta. Thank you to our Director of Music, Kathy Heller-Jones, and members of our 2 choirs who have taken part in the musical offerings. Thank you to members of the LJS who also contributed to this event, to our office staff who work conscientiously behind the scenes to make everything at the LJS happen. A special thank you to Ariel Gallimard for his drawings, to Anne and Bob Kirk for a wonderful tour of the LJS, and last but by no means least, to my colleague Rabbi Igor Zinkov, who is the artist behind the videos and animations, and to Steve Darby from Interfaith Matters, who helped mastermind this event. Without both of you, this online multi-faith Hanukkah event would never have taken place. Finally, thank you to all of you for joining us this evening. We're going to end with a song that includes the celebration's theme, Don't Let the Light Go Out, Let It Shine Through Our Love and Our Tears. And at the very end, the Zoom meeting will stay open for a few minutes for anyone wishing to chat. Chanukah Sameach. I wish us all a Chanukah Sameach, a joyful and happy Chanukah, and to our Christian friends, a peaceful and uplifting Christmas, and to our friends from other faiths, may this new year, which we'll enter into a couple of weeks, bring us peace and health and a sense of well-being and reconciliation in our world. Thank you.
Light one candle for the Maccabee children. Give thanks that their light didn't die. Light one candle for the pain they endured when their right to exist was denied. so many years. Don't let the light go out, let it shine through all love and our tears. Light one candle for the strength that we need to never become our own foe. Light one candle for those who are suffering the pain we learned so long ago. Light one candle for all we believe in. Let anger not tear us apart. Light one candle to bind us together with peace as the song in our heart. Don't let the light go out, it's lasted for so many years. Don't let the light go out, let it shine through our love and our tears. Don't let the light go out, it's lasted for so many years. Don't let the light go out, let it shine through